Same old benefits and perks and work structure are not going to work for all of your team members. And so you have to identify what is important, recognize and acknowledge that we have a much more diverse workforce than we did 50 years ago. And we need to change to reflect that to attract and retain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Recruiting Revolution. Our guest today is Rachel Kargas, talent acquisition leader, DEI advocate, and a speaker. With over 25 years of experience in talent development, Rachel founded her own consulting firm, Rachel Kargas Consulting, in 2008. Welcome to the podcast, Rachel, and it's so amazing to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. To start off with the very first question, can you just help me out with your amazing journey so far?
Sure. Yeah. So I started in talent acquisition many years ago for working for a temporary staffing agency, Kelly Services. And it was, of course, a very different time. And we had to wear suits and pantyhose to work every day. And the entire industry has evolved so much during the 25 years I've been working in it, the space. I worked for a executive search firm in the early 2000s, and that was pre-LinkedIn. We had to actually pick up the phone and call companies to find out who their, sales executive was. And I spent the past 10 years in leading talent acquisition teams for tech companies, small, mid-sized tech companies, such as OpenTable, High Insurance, Berlin-based SumUp, and was, like many of my peers, part of the wave of talent acquisition and tech layoffs in 2023. So at that point, I really fully leaned into my consulting practice, which is providing sort of fractional talent acquisition and HR services to a variety of different clients. And it's been really, really fun.
That is amazing. Was there an inspiration to start of your own, organization, or it was just like an instinct to start?
Twofold. One, I'd kind of been doing some consulting on the side over the years, so you can see that, this isn't a new endeavor, but I decided to really lean into this full time, in part based on the market. It's really, really challenging for people to find great talent acquisition roles right now, in the United States anyways. And in part, I just love being able to come in and take that consultative approach and really add value to an organization which doesn't necessarily have a talent acquisition infrastructure in place.
Yeah, that is so true. The market is kind of challenging. That's true. It's challenging. We must mention that it's really important right now in 2024 as well. In your journey of recruitment, like what challenges have you encountered like so far in your
Yeah.
whole?
Well, it's an ever evolving industry, as is all of them, right? New technologies to stay on top of, new laws to stay on top of. The past 4 years have been the most volatile I've seen. So 2020 with COVID and companies starting layoffs, going into hiring freezes. My team at that time was impacted. Then we had this rebound as we were coming out of or adjusting to the pandemic, where companies were growing like crazy. VC dollars were out there. They were scaling engineering teams and support teams, and certainly talent acquisition teams. And we were scrambling for talent, and there weren't enough recruiters to fill all the jobs. And then as we started to prepare for the recession in 2023, as we all know, companies really started to tighten their belts. Hiring was one of the first things to go, hiring freezes. So lots of recruiters were laid off. And of course, I was part of that. And lots of engineers were laid off, lots of people in the market. And so we're at this really frustrating time where talent acquisition teams are bare bones. They're small. They're often the least experienced, less expensive recruiters that are left behind. Not all. Companies are not investing as much in technology in some cases to support the talent acquisition function. So they're really running kind of bare bones and overwhelmed with the influx of applications. And so what we're seeing is a decline in candidate experience because there's these recruiting teams that are just not resourced appropriately and they can't handle the volume of work. So we have really frustrated job seekers. We have really frustrated and many unemployed talent acquisition professionals. So there's a lot going right, a lot of challenges right now.
Do you think that there might have been like a better way of doing that instead of layoff? Like, might there be like a better strategy or things that should have been planned, or this might be like the only solution?
Yeah, so I think that there is a path forward. I don't know how what we should have done, shoulda, woulda, coulda, is probably not like realized the short-lived nature of this growth, that you don't continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. And so if you're building a talent acquisition team to support that kind of growth, there's going to be a time that comes when you simply don't need all those people. So I think companies using more of a hybrid model of having a small internal talent acquisition team, full-time employees, and then leveraging contract recruiters, RPOs to kind of augment their teams during those peaks times, so that we don't have this scale, and then collapse of at least the talent acquisition function.
Yeah, that is true. Also speaking of hiring challenges, so we need to address, the lack of inclusivity that, that we are seeing in the hiring process nowadays, in the recruitment process. So do you
Mm-hmm.
think that, have you seen any instance where, you've seen that practice not being, happen in the organization in your journey, or in these years probably?
So yeah, so I think it is a highly divisive topic right now, right? DE&I is one that I happen to be pretty passionate about, and particularly on the let's make sure that we are including a broad range of candidates. I think a lot of companies historically have relied very heavily on networks
Yeah.
and employee referrals. And so those are quick, easy hires usually. And who do we tend to refer? We tend to refer people we are the most comfortable with, people who are like us. And so that actually has a limiting impact on the diversity of the team. So really having recruiting teams and the buy-in of the broader organization that we're going to take the time to reach a broad range of candidates, and not just go for that knee-jerk easy referral hire is I think the path forward for increasing inclusion and diversity, and equity in the workplace.
True. Also, like, do you have any tips or any things that you've implemented maybe to the organizations to make the process more inclusive?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, part of it is really, again, a managing expectations around how quickly you're going to fill a job. Um, there's kind of three prongs in recruiting. There's cost, so salary or cost of hire, which could be, the resources that you use to make that hire. There is quality, and I'm going to put diversity in that same bucket. Um, and then there is speed, and you can't have all three. So if you're going to take the time to hire quality, diverse people at a affordable way, it's going to take time. You're going to have to invest the time to search, to post those jobs in the appropriate place, to reach out to diverse pools of candidates. The other piece is really training the team on how do we, once we have a diverse candidate that's interviewing with us, how do we make sure that our bias, unconscious or otherwise, is not influencing our hiring decisions? So making sure that interviewers are very aware of those systems in place that we have that are very natural, and questioning them, questioning our bias, making sure that we're leveraging a diverse hiring panel, so that we're not, the entire interview panel isn't made up of 35-year-old white men. Let's make sure we have a range of gender. Let's make sure we have a range of race and seniority and age. Our population is aging. We have people are working much longer. So ageism is a topic that's rarely talked about when we think about DE&I, and we need to start addressing that as well as racial and gender equity.
Yeah, true. I think training is the key here, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Also, with that, we've also observed like a shift in candidates' wants and needs, like over the past couple of years, especially. Do you think that this has changed the way of hiring, like how it is approached as it compared to like before?
Yeah, so I think this it impacts this hiring, but also kind of our total rewards
Yeah.
that we're using to attract talent. And the big trend that we're hearing about is kind of customized benefit programs. So understanding that you have a very diverse workforce, and the same old benefits and perks and work structure are not going to work for all of your team members. And so you have to identify what is important to the people that work for you. Great way to do that is engagement surveys, and figure it out. Is it flexible work hours for working parents? Is it a childcare benefit to support working mothers and working fathers and maybe narrow that gender gap in hiring? Is it elder care for people who have aging parents? Is it more PTO for those who have wanderlust, right? So it's kind of trying to meet, and it's trying to recognize and acknowledge that we have a much more diverse workforce than we did 50 years ago, and we need to change to reflect that to attract and retain talent.
Yeah, I think different generations has different needs in this time. So we have a lot of generations now working, in organizations. So we have to cater or tailor the needs, I think, accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when we talk about changes, we have to address AI that has to come into picture.
Yep.
Like from the hindsight of the candidate's perspective, I'll be talking about. So candidates are nowadays using different tools and to prepare their CVs or resumes in this time. So do you think that that could be a little go off track for recruiters?
Well, one thing that I've noticed is there's actually there are tools out there now that will auto apply candidates to jobs. So they are using AI to match job seekers with job postings. And so the candidate doesn't even necessarily know that they've applied for a position. They're not looking at the position. It's kind of what we would call spray and pray. And I like to say spray and pray is not the way. We want our candidates to be really intentional about the jobs that they are applying to, making sure that it is actually aligned with their values, their interests, and their lifestyle. And so I think that's one of the pieces that's really tough. Again, I mentioned earlier that recruiters are getting inundated with applications, many of them which actually aren't that qualified, or people aren't really interested in your role. And so I think that's a potential downfall of AI and how it's being used today.
Yeah, true. And from the perspective of a company, if you talk about, so Recruit is soon going to launch like an ATS bag with AI. So we are adding like new features also, like automated features. Like one of them is AI candidate matching. Like we are making sure that we are like shortlisting top candidates. Like according to you, like will that be helpful, or it'll be just creating bias around it? What's your perspective?
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. And I think we just have to be very aware that humans are behind AI. It's not this, like we're inputting the information that AI is learning from. And so if we're putting biased information into AI, that's what we're going to get out. So we have to be very careful about the information that we put in, making sure that AI is not learning from us that, we like certain names better than other names or certain locations better than other locations. So I think that's what we need to be really careful of when using that type of technology.
Yeah, that is true. Also, continuing the previous question, like how to understand like where to apply automation and like where not to use AI. That's a
Yeah.
tricky one.
Yeah. Well, actually, I recently saw like a meme. I don't know who said it, but it was something about like I want AI to do like my laundry, not my writing and my art, right? Like, so I think that there are more transactional pieces that are appropriate for AI. In recruiting, it's a lot of the things that fall under that recruiting coordinator role. So it's the scheduling, it's some automated, candidate communications, reminders on your calendars. Um, things that will make the process more efficient, but not take the human out of it because recruiting, hiring, it's a very human process. And candidates don't want to be interviewed by an AI bot. They are also making a decision about where they're going to work. And they want to talk to real people who work within that organization to get a sense of the culture, to feel a sense of relationship. And that can't be replaced by AI. So I think it's more of the tactical, administrative pieces that we are going to see a lot of use in from AI, but there's always going to be a human element to recruiting.
Yeah, I also feel that without the human element, the candidate experience can like take a step back. So also, like do you think that with AI can disrupt the candidate experience like altogether? Like nowadays there are like recruiters are no longer taking the screening calls. They're just sending like a link to upload a video, like an introductory audio,
Yeah, no.
and not having a
I
conversation.
really don't love that. I do not love the videos. I think
Yeah.
that it's fraught with bias. A video, I mean, usually these are like short clips, right? And they're just going to probably be reaffirming any bias that we may or may not have. It's not a dialogue, a conversation. So I have concerns about using AI that way. Also, to your point, candidates are interviewing companies. Maybe in this market, it feels like it's less so, like it's more of a employer-driven market, but at some time that those tables are going to shift, and candidates are going to be able to be more picky, and they're going to want information from that recruiter. They're going to want to know, why should I work for you when I have other companies I could apply to or other companies that want to interview me? So I think we need to be careful of that from the candidate's perspective, because it's a very one-way street.
Yeah, I think the tables have turned because there are so many competitors and companies nowadays that candidates can apply to, and I think the companies have to show like the best self of them. Also, with that, like what are the ways that employers or individual recruiters can do like to improve the candidate experience like altogether? What can they do?
Well, I think, back to what I was sharing earlier, is that I think teams are really overworked right now. So trying to and so they're not able to deliver the kind of candidate experience that we would hope. So things like ghosting are happening, or are very, uh, not a lot of feedback, and not a very personal process. So I think, again, giving recruiters back some time. So that might be by either hiring more recruiters or contract recruiters, or leaning into the technology that can take some of those administrative tasks off their plate and open up their calendars so that they have more time to provide personalized candidate experience. It really has to be something that is bought into by the entire organization. Candidate experience isn't just the recruiter, it's everybody that the candidate meets with, how they feel they are treated in that process, how quickly recruiters get feedback from hiring managers, how quickly hiring managers are able to make a decision. And recruiters need to be able to influence hiring managers and leadership on running a good process. That, hey, this process should not take 5 months. It doesn't need to be 11 steps. We need to figure out intentional ways of vetting candidates that can happen efficiently with the candidate experience in mind.
Yeah, that is so true. As my like very last question, how will according to you, how will recruiting change over the next 5 years, if we say?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, wish I did. But I do think, again, I think two things. One, I do believe, I don't think that we're going to see what we saw in 2021, where we built out these huge internal talent acquisition teams. I think we're going to rely more heavily on that hybrid model I was mentioning, which is, a smaller team of internal full-time employees, recruiters who understand, really intimately understand the organization, and have institutional knowledge, and then leveraging more flexible workforce around that to handle those peaks. I do think of course, we're going to continue to see use of technology. I think that recruiting coordinator position might be a thing of the past, as we have tech that can really do a lot of that work for us. We're going to see an increased, and we already have, but leaning into data. Recruiting used to be seen as kind of a fluffy industry, and I think now it's becoming more data focused, needing recruiters who are more analytical and strategic, who can really speak the language of a business, and help them understand the return on investment on the products that they're using, on the techniques that they're using. And we're going to continue to see shifts as our workforce, it becomes more and more diverse. Gen Z is the most racially diverse generation in the United States history. And so we have to change what we're doing in order to attract and retain that diverse talent.
That is so true. That concludes all my questions, and it was such a pleasure having you on the show, Rachel.
Thank you. It was great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.